first question is revolving around implement and manage user identities. And the question goes, so note, this question is part of a series of questions that present the same scenario. Each question in the series contains a unique solution that might meet the stated goals. Second question still revolves around the same question one, but here this different solution has been suggested. You configure pass-through authentication. Does that meet the goal? So as explained earlier, these as well won't meet the goal. Does this meet the goal? The answer is still no. Why? Question 3. You have an Azure Active Directory, Azure AD tenant named contoso.com that contains an Azure AD Enterprises application named Application 1. A contractor uses the credentials of user 1 at outlook.com. You need to ensure that you can provide the contractor with access to App 1. The contractor must be able to authenticate as user 1 at outlook.com. What should you do? So question 4. Plan and implement identity governance. So you need to resolve the recent security incident issues. What should you configure for each incident? So you need to answer, drag the appropriate policy types to the correct issues. Each policy type may be used once, more than once, or not at all. Hello fellow Azure enthusiasts. Welcome back to our channel. Today we are diving deep into the world of Microsoft Azure with a focus on the SC-300 exam, the Microsoft Identity and Access Administrator certification exam. If you're gearing up for this exam or simply want to reinforce your knowledge, you are in the right place. In this video, we're going to tackle a comprehensive set of review questions and answers specifically designed for the SC-300 exam. So whether you are a beginner exploring cloud concepts or an experienced professional that is aiming to validate his or her Azure skills, this content is for you. So what are we going to talk about in the SC-300? Let's have a breakdown. So first of all, we are going to do a question exploration where we will dissect real world scenarios and quiz style questions that mirror what you might encounter in the actual exam. So that is from cloud services to pricing models. So that is all will be covered herein. Secondly, these detailed explanations. The detailed explanation, so we believe that it's not just about getting the right answers. It's about understanding why it is correct, and will provide in-depth explanations for each question, demystifying Azure concepts along the way. And then again, thirdly, we'll be sharing the exam strategies on how the tips, tricks, and the strategy to boost your confidence during the exam. That is from the time management to tackling trick scenarios. So for that, we got you covered. So lastly, but not least, is interactive learning. That is, you feel free to pause, rewind, and engage with the content. Learning, we believe, is a journey, and we're here to guide you every step of the way. So first of all, you may ask yourself, who are we? We are 591 Lab, and our website is 591lab.com, pronounced as 591 Lab. So 591 Lab is the top IT training and certification exam brand in China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Singapore. Our mission at 591 Lab is to provide our clients with exceptional exam preparation experience for certifications in Cisco, Huawei, Aruba, Juniper, Microsoft, and Azure certification tracks. So what are the agenda that we're going to talk about? And our agenda is going to encompass the exam topics that are usually being brought into the Microsoft SC-300 exam. So first, we are going to talk about implement and manage user identities. Secondly, implement authentication and access management. Thirdly, plan and implement workload identities. And then lastly, the question will roll around plan and implement identity governance. So grab your favorite beverage, settle in. Let's embark on this Azure adventure together. Remember, knowledge is power, and mastering SC-300 is your gateway to unlocking more advanced Azure security certifications. So if you're ready to explore the questions and answers, so let's get on. And the first question revolving around implement and manage user identities. And the question goes, so note, this question is part of a series of questions that present the same scenario. Each question in the series contains a unique solution that might meet the stated goals. Some question set might have more than one correct solution, while others might not have a correct solution at all. So after answering a question in this section, you will not be able to return to it. As a result, these questions will not appear in the review screen. So as stated earlier, that some of the exam questions within the Microsoft exam, they only allow you to review the question and answer them, and you're not able to return to those particular questions. So this is an example of such a question where you answer yes or no to the solution suggested, but after answering, you'll not be able to go back to that particular question to change your answer. So the question, an example of this question here goes, you have an Active Directory forest that syncs to Azure Active Directory Azure AD tenant. Right now it's Microsoft Entra ID. You discover that when a user account is disabled in Active Directory, the disabled user can still authenticate to Azure AD for up to 30 minutes. You need to ensure that when a user account is disabled in Active Directory, the user account is immediately prevented from authenticating to Azure AD. The solution they're suggesting here is that you need to configure password right back. And then they're asking you, does this meet the goal? The suggested solution, does it meet the goal? A, yes. B, no. So before you answer this question, so let's go to our Microsoft whiteboard and try to learn on how the authentication from a user identity perspective gets to happen within the Microsoft identity provider realm. So when we go to our Microsoft whiteboard, so in our Microsoft whiteboard here, I want us to have what we call the on-premises side, and then we have the Azure side. On the on-premises, we have Active Directory. Active Directory. On the Azure side, we have what we call the Azure Active Directory, Azure AD, or currently called Microsoft Entra. Currently called Microsoft Entra. This is the new one, the new name, Microsoft Entra, previously called Azure AD. So these are identity providers, in that the Active Directory predominantly is domiciled within the on-premises side, and then the Azure AD is domiciled within the Azure side. At times, as a customer, you might want to connect these two Active Directories. So you might want to connect the on-prem Active Directory and the Azure AD. So that connection is usually being aided through Azure Active Directory AD Connect, Azure AD Connect. So Azure AD Connect. So Azure AD Connect will ensure that the accounts from the on-premises are synced to the Azure side. So that's why you'll find a user, let's say user James, that exists on the on-premises. James will also exist in Azure AD side. So we have James on the on-premises as well. So to implement the Azure AD Connect, there are usually authentication mechanisms that you get to choose. So one of the authentication mechanisms is usually pass-through authentication. Which is also usually abbreviated PTA, pass-through authentication. Another form of authentication is usually password hash synchronization. Password hash synchronization. So what's the difference between password through authentication and password hash synchronization? Password through authentication is that the point of the validation of the account, of particular users, the way they authenticate to the Active Directory, is the source of truth is on the on-premise Active Directory. So let's say the user want to log into an application, a reference. So this user James, they want to log into an application. The token, the reference will be made back to the on-premises AD. That token will be referenced back from the on-premises AD. Although these two Active Directories have been, these two ADs have been connected through Azure AD Connect, but when you configure pass-through authentication, the source of truth for a user authenticating to a particular application, the source of truth is usually Active Directory. That is with the pass-through authentication. But with the password hash synchronization, the password of the user, the password hash of the users is usually synchronized onto the Azure AD side. So that means it is the hash, the password hash is the hash of the password hash of that particular user that is synchronized on the AD side. So that's why you see user, even if the on-premises Active Directory could be down, this user could still authenticate to the application because they are using the Azure AD side, because the hash of the password has already been synchronized on the Azure Active Directory side. But with pass-through authentication, if at all the Active Directory on premises could go down, that means the source of truth is not there. Now the user will not be able to authenticate to that particular application. So there's also another aspect of password write back that you can get to implement. Password write back enables a user, for example, if at all the user who existing on the cloud, they've forgotten their password, if they do a reset of the password, if at all they do a reset, this reset also affects the password that sits on the on-premises side. So the password reset is reset on the cloud side, on the Azure side, as well as the on-premises side. So let's go back to our question and see by ourselves and see what could be the answer. So the question is asking, you need to ensure that when a user account is disabled in Active Directory, the user account is immediately prevented from authenticating to Azure AD. So the solution they're saying is you configure password write back. Does this meet the goal? This won't meet the goal. It is a no. And why is it a no? Because password write back, as stated, is a feature of Azure AD Connect, which ensures that when a password changes in Azure AD, or when there's a password change, that is self-service password reset or an administrative change or user password, it is written back to the local on-premises AD. If they meet the on-premises AD password policy, technically a password write back operation is a password reset action. Password write back removes the need to set up an on-premises solution for users to reset their password. It all happens in real time, and so users are notified immediately if their password could not be reset or changed for any reason. So you find that these essentially doesn't meet the goal because these are password reset issue or solution. So it doesn't necessarily mean resolve the issue of an account being disabled on the Active Directory and prevent the users from authenticating with Azure AD. So this is no. Second question still revolves around the same question one, but here this different solution has been suggested. You configure pass-through authentication. Does that meet the goal? So as explained earlier, these as well won't meet the goal. Does this meet the goal? The answer is still no. Why? This is because configuring pass-through authentication, which I had already mentioned is abbreviated as PTA, will not meet the goal of immediately preventing a disabled user account in Active Directory from authenticating to Azure AD. So why? So this is because as a pass-through authentication function, pass-through authentication leverages the on-premises Active Directory credentials for user authentication in Azure AD. It validates user credentials by directing the request to your on-premises Active Directory servers. So that is given. And then again, now disabling a user account in Active Directory doesn't instantly update the Azure AD. As I mentioned, let me go back to the whiteboard. So when you disable a user here, that immediately doesn't disable this user on the Azure side. If you've implemented the pass-through authentication, it doesn't immediately disable this user on this other end, because there's a replication delay. There's what we call replication delay. There is a replication delay between the on-premises side and the Azure side. So this delay can take up to around 30 minutes. So meaning, even if you've disabled this user here, this user can still be able to log into the application through the identity on the Azure AD side. So during this delay, a disabled user account might still appear valid for authentication in Azure AD. So therefore, the PTA can streamline authentication using on-premises credentials. It doesn't address the specific requirement of immediate account disablement in Azure AD upon on-premises disablement. So the best choice here, as mentioned, will be password hash synchronization. Why? Password hash synchronization because whenever you disable this user here, remember you've disabled the hashes, and these hashes, this password hash is usually being replicated to the Azure side real time. So when this is disabled, that means this user on this other will not be able to access the application because of that password has already been disabled, and the system can see on the back end that this password is not working anymore because the token is invalid. So that is why password hash synchronization will be able to resolve this particular issue, but not the password through authentication. So you configure password through authentication. Will this meet the goal? The answer here is still no. Question 3. You have an Azure Active Directory, Azure AD tenant named contoso.com that contains an Azure AD Enterprises application named Application 1. A contractor uses the credentials of user1 at outlook.com. You need to ensure that you can provide the contractor with access to App 1. The contractor must be able to authenticate as user1 at outlook.com. What should you do? A. Run the new Azure AD user commandlet. B. Configure the external collaboration settings. C. Add a WS-fed identity provider. D. Create a guest user account in contoso.com. So remember, this user1 at outlook.com is not within your domain, so is an outsider. So how do you let an outsider be able to access internal applications within your organization? So I'll go back to the Microsoft whiteboard here. So within the Microsoft whiteboard, I'll be able to demonstrate to you how the authentication works for an external user. So if you have your Azure AD and you have your domain name. So the domain name here is, for example, let's say Polo at Polo. Let's say user is Polo. One of the users is Polo at jackton.com. So this jackton.com, this is my domain, jackton.com, this is my domain. So meaning everyone within my organization, their UPN will be having jackton.com. So, but I have an external user who has at outlook.com. And I want them to use this outlook.com to access my application that is sitting on Azure side. So what happens? I'll treat this user as a guest. So I'll invite them into my domain, into my tenant. When I do that invitation, I'm doing that invitation as I'm inviting them as guests. And as guests, I give them access to this application only. To this application. So let me go to Azure portal, and then I go to Microsoft Entra. So I'll go to, let me just say Azure AD. It will bring Microsoft Entra here. So when you go to users, I'll go to users and show you. So I'll go to users. So let's imagine I want to invite an external user. So you can see my domain, the identity is under Jackton on the other at outlook.onmicrosoft.com. So let's say I have a different user. So let's say, so if I want to, so let's say I can create a new user or invite an external user. In my case, the outlook.com is an external user. So you'll select this option. Select this option written invite external user. So if I say invite external user, so click there and then go and email of the user. So let's say I'm inviting user 1. So let me just go back to the question and find that user is user1 at outlook.com. So I go here, user1, the one at outlook.com. So in case of user1, I need you to see how it goes. So user1 at outlook.com. And then I just say user1 and invite message. So send invite message. This one message will be sent to this particular email address, user1 at outlook. If these are valid email address, it will be sent. Kindly accept, collaborate. And then yeah, CC recipient. So with us. Then I say next. Then put the name user1 like that. So I can put the name. So you can see user type here. It's being invited as a user, not a member. I'm not inviting him as a member. I'm inviting him as a guest user. So when I invite him as a guest user, I fill all the details and everything. After filling in all the details, and then I say next assignments. If I want to add him to a group, a particular group, that means in that particular group, I've already categorized that this group only has got access to this sort of application. So let's say this the group I'll add this particular user has only access to app 1. So I put him in that group, or I want to add role, and then I say review and create. So if I say review and create, a mail will be sent to this particular user, the user 1 at Outlook, and then they'll accept. Then they'll be invited to my tenant as a guest user. So you need to ensure that you can provide a contractor with the access to app 1. So they need to authenticate using user1 at outlook.com. So the correct answer here is create a guest user account in contoso.com. So you might ask yourself, why are the rest of the answers not correct? So the first thing that we need to look into is, for example, the first choice, creating and running the new Azure AD user commandlet. So this commandlet, as it is, this commandlet creates a new user account within your Azure AD tenant. So it will create a new tenant within contoso.com, you will create a new user account within Azure AD tenant, the contoso.com. So this is wouldn't be ideal because you don't want to create a new account for the contractor. You want them to authenticate as the email address indicated, user1@outlook.com, which likely exists in a separate domain, that is the domain outlook.com. B, why is B not correct? Configuring the external collaboration settings. So while enabling external collaboration allows you to invite users from other organizations, it wouldn't allow the contractor to authenticate directly with that email, Outlook user1@outlook.com. They will need to use a separate account from their own domain. So choice C is AWS Federation Identity Provider. So WS Fed is a federation protocol used for authentication between different identity providers. So this option essentially will be unnecessary here. You already have the user1@outlook.com existing in another identity provider, likely Microsoft, and you just need to grant them access within your Azure AD tenant. So the best option here is creating a guest user account in Azure AD, which will allow you to invite user1@outlook.com as a guest user. This will grant them access to specific resources, like for example the application one in our scenario, within our Azure AD tenant, while still maintaining their original credentials, that is the user1 for the user1@outlook.com. So question 4, plan and implement identity governance. So you need to resolve the recent security incident issues. What should you configure for each incident? So you need to answer, drag the appropriate policy types to the correct issues. Each policy type may be used once, more than once, or not at all. So risk detections in Microsoft Entra ID protection include any identified suspicious actions related to user accounts in the directory. So risk detections, both user and sign-in linked, contribute to the overall user risk score that is found in the risky user report. So the risk can be detected at the user and sign-in level, and two types of detections or calculation: real-time and offline. Some risks are considered premium, available to Microsoft Entra ID P2 customers only, while others are available to free and Microsoft Entra ID P1 customers. So a sign-in risk represents the probability that a given authentication request isn't the authorized identity owner. So what that means is that risky activity can be detected for a user that isn't linked to a specific malicious sign-in, but the user itself. So real-time detections might not show up in reporting for 5 to 10 minutes, but offline detection might not show up in the reporting for 48 hours. So the sign-in risk detection, so we have, for example, a typical travel, that is dictionary type is offline and it requires a premium license, a normalized token. So now with that, so you'll find when you go to under risk detections, the answer here will be provided for box 1, a user risk. So leak credentials is a user link detections, a user link detection. So this is a user risk policy. Under leak credential, this is a user risk policy, in that the leak credential, this risk detection type, indicates that the user's valid credentials have been leaked when cybercriminals compromise valid passwords, like that is of legitimate users. They often share those credentials to the dark web, for example. Again, so identity protection can calculate what it believes is normal, because it uses some essence of heuristics under the hood. Then when you go to box 2, a sign-in from a suspicious browser. A sign-in from a suspicious browser, that is a sign-in risk policy, because you remember you're signing in. A sign-in risk policy. So a suspicious browser detection indicates anomalous behavior based on suspicious sign-in activity across multiple tenants from different countries in the same browser. So that's why, because this is just a medium that you're using to access the internet, so that sign-in, it's under the sign-in risk policy. But the leak credentials is because the credential belongs to a user, so that's why it's categorized under user risk policy. And then box 3, that is resources accessed from an anonymous IP address, that will fall under a sign-in risk policy. Why? Because a sign-in risk include activity from anonymous IP addresses. So this detection is discovered by Microsoft Defender for cloud applications. So this detection essentially identifies what users were active from an IP address that has been identified as anonymous proxy IP address. So in essence, now when I take you to the Azure portal, when you want to access the risk detections, you go to the Microsoft Entra ID and then go to navigate all the way to security. When you're on the security section, you'll see, for example, if you want to see risky users, so when you click on the risky users, it will give you that particular report. And as I mentioned, this will need you to have a premium P2 license. And as observed from my side, if you want to know, I have my license is Microsoft Entra ID free, so I'm not able to. So let me try login to another just come on to another AD here, portaloffice.com. Moment again. So go here, sign in. So I go to admin. So then when I say show all, and then I go to Entra ID. Let me go all admin centers and search, go to Microsoft Entra. And okay, now I go to protection, show more. So if I go to identity protection, so when I'm under the identity protection, so if I say risky users, so you can see it's telling me risky user, this user Jackson Ondida is at risk. Risk last updated 14th January 2024. If I click on that user, it's telling me this user, for example, detection Jackson Ondida is a global admin and is at risk. And then if I go to recent risky sign-ins, it will show me detection not linked to sign-in. Risk history, it will show me my history, low from, this one is saying low, medium. So user risk detections, that's not configured yet. The reason why I'm able now to see all this information is because I have the Microsoft. If I take you back to my overview and home, if I take you back to home and for my identity, you should be able to see that I have premium P2 licenses. View. Yeah. So you can see here, licenses Microsoft Entra P2. So this Microsoft Entra P2 is a license is enabling me. I'm able now to see, and like when I go to protection, identity protection, I'm able to see things under risky detection, risky sign-in, risky workload, risky users. If I click risky users, it will just pick automatically for you users who are at risk. So you can see it has already picked me. Like for example, this account of mine is under risk. If I go to dashboard, it will give me a bunch of information, but mine has not been populated yet. So if I go to user risk policy, I can configure that policy. Sign-in risk, I can also configure that policy so that it can take effect. So if I go back to now to our question, as said, leaked credentials, that is a user risk policy. Sign-in from a suspicious browser, that is a sign-in risk policy. And then resources access from anonymous IP, that is a sign-in risk policy. So this essentially marks the end of our question presentation, and I really want to thank you all for attending today's class at 591 Lab. We hope you found the material informative and helpful. Remember, practice is critical to mastering any new skill, so review the course content and keep practicing with 591 Lab help and support. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to contact us. We appreciate your participation and look forward to seeing you in the future classes. Have a great day.